Like we're on Happy Wine Wednesday.
Happy Wine
We just
Wednesday.
had a little technical glitch. I was like, I don't know if we're live, but we are live.
We are live. It's so funny. Michelle and I are always like looking at each other like, are we live? And the answer is a resounding yes. So we are happy to be back with you guys.
Yes,
we hope that you guys have had an amazing week so far and that you are kicking back with a glass of wine, hopefully the same one we're drinking, but if not, no judgment here. We are like, seriously, Michelle and I are so excited to be back. Like we took a little hiatus and we have so much to share with you guys. And we just love being with you guys every Wednesday. So it's going to be great.
Yes, we are so excited.
Okay, so without further ado, like let's just like hop into the wine because
the wine.
Obviously the wine is the main event. So this week we're doing something a little bit different. We are, it's February, almost March. We're getting into quote unquote rosé season, which stay tuned because we're going to do a blog really shortly about rosé and how it kind of just gets a bad rep and a little bit about the history of it and how complex and amazing it can be. But today we're actually drinking a rosé from Texas, which I know you guys are all like, ew, why do we want wine from Texas? And normally I would agree. However, this wine is actually very good. It's a local winery called Slate Theory. They're a new up-and-comer. I don't know if I can say new up-and-comer anymore, Michelle. I feel like they've been around for a hot minute at this point. Yeah. But newer to Fredericksburg, if you will. And they have a new take on wine from Texas. And they definitely, did a lot of study in Napa. So there's a lot of that that's being reflected in the Texas landscape. They use grape cloning technology. There's a lot of really cool things that they're doing. But one of the things that I love so much about that winery is it is a family-owned business with multiple siblings, and all of them are involved. One of them is an artist and actually curates all the art that you see on the bottles and sells paintings in the actual tasting room. It is such, Michelle and I have been there together. It is such a vibe. We love it there. This particular rosé comes from the Sangiovese grape, which is Tuscany's signature grape. What I love about it is it's going to be a little bit more savory than your typical rosé. It's got a little bit more body than a lot of the grapes that they'll typically use in rosé. So it's a lot more interesting. It's not boring. It's a little bit deeper of a color. It's really crisp, but it also has a really refreshing mouthfeel. If you guys have the opportunity and you haven't yet been, please go to Slate because it's just like such a vibe there. Truly, like everything about the campus is amazing. Right, Mish?
Yes, I can attest to that. One of the first times I've actually met Jenny, we were at Slate. We did like a whole wine day with our company in Fredericksburg. And let me say, Slate is by far one of my favorite wineries. And it was so cool. It kind of has like a psychology background.
Oh my God, you're right. I totally skimped on that part. One of the kids, I think, is a psychologist. And so all of their bottles have really cool names like neurologist, antisocial, etc. Like a lot of, vibes of that nature. So it's really cool because they definitely curate an amazing wine list and they put a lot of thought into, what they're making, and it's a family affair. And for Texas wine, like, my God, you guys just have to check it out.
You do. Go ahead. I can't wait to get back there.
Next show. I'm going to drag you with me. Awesome. Okay. So what about Mish? What was your rose and your thorn for the week?
Yes. Let's see. So they kind of coincide, I guess. So I am embarking on 3 weeks of travel and it is like mass chaos. So I am first going to Las Vegas this weekend, and then from Las Vegas going to Florida for a women's financial conference, which I'm really excited about. And I'm sure I'll try to post lots of content from there, but I'm very excited. And then from Florida, I am going to Montana to go skiing. So a lot of different like climates. Because of this, my thorn is a little stressed. Just trying to, get all my work in so I could relax this weekend, but also trying to figure out how to pack and figuring out my luggage situation has been very tricky.
I can't imagine why.
I know. I need to pack my like new snow boots. I was showing Jenny before. I got new snow boots that are probably weigh like 3 or 4 pounds, or probably more itself. And then like my puffer jacket and all these sweaters, but obviously I can't wear that in Florida. So I think I'll be going to FedEx tomorrow to ship all my Montana stuff to Montana.
I fully support that decision. And I mean, you're doing better than me because like my MO whenever that happens is like, I'll just wear the snow boots on the plane.
Right. That's my plan B. So
okay.
If you see me in Florida walking throughout the airport in snow boots, it wasn't me.
You know why? And it also wasn't me. She's going to run and hide now.
What about you? What are your rose and thorn?
Okay, so my rose for the week is that I feel like my house, for those of you who don't know, my house has been a construction zone for the past like 3 months. And I think finally we're in a position where I don't have contractors in and out, and I feel like a little more settled, and it's just great to kind of just be back. And similar to Michelle, my thorn is on the flip side of that, which is I am a dum-dum, and we were remodeling our guest bathroom, and I wanted to buy one of those really cool showers that like are very old school, and they come from the actual bathtub itself, and then they arch into like a rainfall, and there's like a cascading glass piece in front of it. And so I'm like doing all of this, and I order everything, and it's like coming together, and it's beautiful. And then yesterday my husband was like, Jenny, come in here. And I was like, oh no, what? And he showed me like the fixture that I ordered for the shower was literally 4 feet tall.
Oh.
And when I tell you that we modeled the entire bathroom around this fixture, we literally cut into the tile for this fixture, like everything. And so I'm like frantically Googling, how do I have an extension piece for this in the exact same color that's actually going to work? And I still haven't found a solution. So hopefully next time we chat, I will have come up with something. But
you have to update us. So
yeah,
I am intrigued.
Yeah, total move. Like that's so typical of me, just to be like, "Ooh, pretty," and then not like see it through on whether or not it's actually going to be functional. I'll stick to my day job, I guess.
Interior decorating me. Off the table for you, but
can't win them all, right?
Yes, can't win them all.
Well, awesome. I'm really excited to get into our episode for this week. It's something that is really near and dear to me. It's something that I wholeheartedly believe in, and I feel like I have a lot to share with regard to the topic, which is how to bounce back from failure. But before we dig into that, I would be remiss if I didn't allow Michelle to talk about our quote queen, to talk about our quote of the week.
Quote queen is back. So quote of the week is, and this ties into this week's episode, but success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. And that's by Winston Churchill. You'll see why. So today, Jenny is going to introduce our topic, but it'll tie in nicely to it. So I don't want to give it away. So go ahead, Jenny, and introduce her for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I was saying before, really want to talk to you guys about failure, because I know that we've talked a lot about it on the podcast before, but we haven't really talked about what happens when you take a big leap of faith and then it doesn't pan out. Talked a lot about how it's inevitable to fail as an entrepreneur and how that's going to happen, but what do you do when it does happen, right? And we're not here to sugarcoat it, right? Bouncing back from failure is always going to be challenging, but it's something that you have to hone as a skill set if you want to be successful, or if you want to grow as a person, right? And this can be in your business, this can be in your personal life. It doesn't matter. Everybody needs to know how to bounce back from failure, especially if they've taken a leap of faith, right?
Yeah.
You're always going, I mean, it's a surety in life that you will face failure. So we just wanted to give you guys some tips and tricks on how you can pick yourself back up when you fall, or as Leah said, if at first you don't succeed,
try again.
Throwback. Had to hit you with it.
Yes. Love that. Okay, so yeah, and like Jenny was saying, we want to provide you with some tips on how to bounce back. And first, and I think this is a major one, and we have talked about it before, but first step is to actually acknowledge your feelings and what you were feeling. So it's okay, that you have failed, and just take a step back and to actually feel your emotions and what you were feeling from that failure. So some emotions that we've seen that you can be feeling are like anger, disappointment, sadness, frustration. Why did I fail and why is this happening to me? And let me tell you, it is okay to feel. And I know a lot of times, you want to be strong and kind of put on a strong face and not really face your emotions and walk around like, oh, everything is fine. And I have been victim to that in the past. And let me tell you, it will come back and haunt you. So it's always a good tip to, face your feelings head on and acknowledge those feelings.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of what Michelle's saying from an emotional perspective, a lot of folks, especially in the entrepreneurial space, tend to be a little bit type A, myself included. And, a lot of times whenever you have an emotional response to something, it's natural when you're super type A to be like, I'm going to suppress that and I'm going to keep going. But one of the things that I've had to learn the hard way is if you continually do that and don't take time to process and feel the emotions of what it means to fail at something and how that impacts your ego and how that impacts your feelings and everything else that goes along with it, how it impacts the next thing that you do. It's always going to come back and haunt you in the worst ways. And typically when it happens is when you're all by yourself, like if you're driving or if you're in the shower or if you've had a ton of failures in a row. And then it can become more than just a failure. It can become debilitating. You have to let your mind process everything that has happened and the emotions that come along with it. And that really ties hand in hand with the other thing that Michelle and I were going to talk to you about, which is like reflecting on the failure, right? Mm-hmm. This is really difficult, you guys. It is really hard to stare down the barrel of something that you failed at and ask yourself, why did I fail at this? But if you don't do that, you're doomed to repeat those mistakes, right? Like a lesson is a lesson until you are no longer doing it, right? It's going to continue to repeat itself until you've learned what went wrong. In a lot of instances, it may not even be something that you did, right? Maybe there are other parameters or circumstances that could have been done differently. Maybe it's not just you, but you have to reflect on it, right? You have to reflect and ask, what could have been done differently? What could I have done differently? What could others have done differently? What circumstances would have made this a little bit more optimal so that moving forward, I can make sure that we're in a better position? And then really the most important aspect of that is, what did I learn from this, right? Mm-hmm. Reflect on what went wrong and how you can make sure this doesn't happen in the future. Mm-hmm. And a lot of this, you have to take kind of like a 30,000 foot overview of everything that happened, because when you're going through it, you're so in it. Yeah. When something is finalized, you can actually take a step back and say, whoa, whoa, whoa. In some instances, done is not better than perfect, right? Some things require a little bit more finesse and a little bit more thought. And if you avoid, and you don't really dig in, no matter what your next endeavor is, or maybe it's a similar thing, maybe it's something that has to do with your family, maybe it's emotional, whatever, what have you. If you don't deal with the fallout of what took place, you can't make the pivots that are necessary. Right. And that is entrepreneurism, that is life, that is relationships. All of those things have to take place in order for us to continue to succeed in those endeavors.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I know one of the sayings is always like, history repeats itself. So, you need to reflect upon what went wrong in order to grow and not have history repeat itself, and work on what went wrong.
Yeah.
And another tip that we have for you is to maintain your perspective. And I know that might be very hard in the moment. And especially, you know, once you've failed or you feel like you've hit rock bottom, it's so hard to kind of look at the journey ahead and know that this isn't your end all be all and things will eventually get better. And listen, failure is a part of life. And I know almost every entrepreneur or successful person that I've talked to has told me about their journey and about how they failed, many of them multiple times. And it's not a reflection upon who you are as a person. Always remember that, because I know, you know, some people, especially myself, like to like say like, oh, you know, what did I do wrong? And like Jenny was saying, it might have been out of your control. And also, failure leads to growth. And these setbacks are just kind of like a bump in the road, and you will eventually overcome them. And most of the people that kind of like aren't successful, or I think they've hit their rock bottom in failure and they just don't see any point to continue. But most of the people that do grow have overcome that failure and see the, you know, light at the end of the tunnel. So you would have it.
Yeah. And I mean, kind of going off of what you're saying with regard to growth mindset, right? When you are trying to accomplish something in life, it is always going to serve you to have a growth mindset over a fixed mindset.
Yeah.
When you are going through something that is challenging in life, it's almost a mandate that you have a growth mindset. Like you have to, right? Because otherwise it's going to cripple you. And that's not you guys, right? Like that's not who you are. So you have to pick yourself up and pull yourself out of it and ask, what can I learn from this? Because that's what somebody with a growth mindset would do. What lessons did I learn? And one of the most important questions that you have to ask is, what did I learn about myself and how I respond to this, so that I can guard against that in the future, right? I've had to do that with myself through the many, many, many failures that I have fallen into, right? It's like, you know what? Like, is this something that I even wanted in the first place? Was I pushing this because of ego or because it's something that I wanted? And one of the things that always sticks with me, I don't remember who said the quote, but it's one of my favorite quotes. And it's always okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end. And you fully have to embody that. If you're going to be a risk taker or someone who is putting themselves out there, it's never the end. Life is a constant evolution of us doing everything we can to continually improve and to continually enhance our lives, right? So if something went wrong, I'm not going to get all woo-woo on you and say that like it wasn't meant to be, but I mean, kind of, right? Like truly, it's not the end. You don't end in failure. You continue to progress and move forward. And we all know that life isn't linear by any stretch of the imagination. Gosh, sometimes I wish that it was, but it's not. Right? We're going to have ups and downs. That's the natural progression of the way that the world works. So just remind yourself, if you have failed at something, it is not the end of the world.
Right.
And it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
But you just have to keep pushing through until you can reach whatever the pinnacle that you set out for yourself is.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of the times, I know I've actually experienced this, but many times, like at the point of failure, kind of like thought to myself, okay, well, there's only good things ahead. And I know that I'm going to get stronger and grow from this experience.
Yeah.
Okay. Next tip we have for you guys is to reassess your goals. So, and once you have failed at something, you know, and you've acknowledged it, and sat in your feelings a little bit, go back and reassess your goals and I guess, you know, figure out if this is something that you want to continue upon and continue doing. And if it is, just make sure that you're very specific with those goals. I know in one of our previous podcasts, we went over how to set goals and the acronym SMART. So you really want to make sure that you're clear, because if you're not clear in your goals, let me tell you, there's, you know, it's going to be very hard to succeed.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, one of the things that we really want to make sure that you guys are taking away from this is that at the end of the day, you you should not be as hard on yourself as you are inevitably going to be, right? As we mentioned before, you're gonna fail, right? Everyone experiences it. You are not unique. But at the end of the day, if you are able, I mean, what this country, everybody in America loves the story of a phoenix, right? Rising from the ashes. That's what gives you the character and the ability to like get yourself back up, dust yourself off and say, you know what? I failed. I don't know if any of you guys have seen the movie Elizabethtown, but it's one of my favorite movies for like the most random reason. There is the scene where Orlando Bloom, who was this big exec at this like shoe company, he basically made shoes for this company, and he was a high level executive, and he put his whole career behind this shoe that ultimately failed. And so much so was he taken aback by this failure that his whole identity was lost. He was like suicidal about it, you guys. He was so wrapped up in the identity of this shoe. And there's this one component, there's a meet cute. It's a rom-com, laugh at me later. There's a meet cute with Kirsten Dunst where, you know, she's very quirky. They hit it off in like a very strange way. And he finally like shares this like big burden of his fear and his ego of this big failure that makes him feel like a failure, which, by the way, just because you fail doesn't mean you are a failure. And anyways, there's a scene where Kirsten Dunst, who again is very quirky, goes on this monologue about his failure. And she goes, you failed, 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 you failed. And her message was, big whoop. Who cares? Like, and he eventually got it. And he was like, okay, I get where you're going with it. But I just love that scene in the movie because it's such a metaphor for the things that the trials and tribulations that we experience in our lives. And it literally is. That's how you should feel about it. So what? Yeah. You failed. Do all of these things that we're telling you to do as you process it, because it is something to grieve. But you have to have that mentality. I mean, I know I've had my share of failures in my life. I've talked to you guys before about how I failed the bar exam. My entire identity was wrapped up in that. And I was like, how am I going to overcome this? Because I could not separate the fact that I failed at something from the fact that I was a failure. And that's not a lesson that I want any of you guys to learn firsthand. You should just take that at face value because it's true.
Right. No, it is true. Yeah. As one example of a time that I failed and how I bounced back from it was when I was just starting out in this industry. And the first few months I did have like other things going on, but I wasn't succeeding like I wanted to. And I like was trying to do everything that everyone was telling me to do. And so finally I just like was like, what is wrong? Like, am I meant to be like doing this? What, you know, is it me? And I allowed myself to like feel frustrated and angry. And then I took a step back and was like, listen, like if all these other people are doing it, why can't I? And why can't I succeed? So I took a step back and reassessed my goals and how I was going to get to those goals. And once I became a lot clearer on what I needed to do to get there, it totally changed.
Yeah. And I think like the big anecdote from what Michelle is talking about is reflection, right? And she was able to stay in her goal. Sometimes you're not always able to do that. The reflection piece will tell you where you're at with that. So I don't know. There's so many shorties in life. Failure's one of them, as I've mentioned. So I really hope that you guys, next time you fail at something, which you're going to, you take these principles and apply them to whatever that failure is, whatever it looks like, and try to make sure that you're just not beating yourself into oblivion about the fact that you're a failure, because you are not. Right. You know, success is something that is going to come to you in due time. Truly, right. I believe that. And we just wanted to take an opportunity because we talk a lot about, you know, how to respond to things on this podcast. And I definitely don't want to be somebody who is promoting toxic positivity. But at the end of the day, these things are going to help you on your journey towards whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. And the alternative, as Michelle mentioned, is for you to wallow in your self-pity. And that honestly doesn't get you anywhere.
Right. It really doesn't.
Well, that is a wrap for how to bounce back from failure. But one little announcement that we wanted to share with you guys. I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with our newsletter, but we have evolved it recently. We are very excited about it. It is rich with content. We are giving away recommendations for where to go in our respective cities and on vacation. We are covering current events. We are talking about badass female entrepreneurs and their successes. We are giving blogs. We are giving away blogs that are going to unlock a lot of success principles in many different avenues. So if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, please be sure to do so. It's on our website, empowerwomenlive.com. And also, we are going to be moving the podcast cadence to bi-monthly. So we are very excited to join you guys. We wanted to be more curated about it and get some amazing guests in front of you guys. We have a lot of stuff that's cooking up, and we're excited to share with y'all.
Yes, and definitely sign up for our newsletter before March, because it is Women's History Month, and I know there's going to be very good kind of like blogs and articles in there. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for joining us, and happy Wine Wednesday.
Happy Wine Wednesday. I need to go watch the new Love is Blind episodes.
Oh my gosh. Bye, y'all.